Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win here. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving and hopefully even better Black Friday. Hopefully you got your PlayStation 5 or your Xbox Series X during that time. Today we are going to be playing the Tempest Rush Monk Build using the Sunwuku set, aka the Monkey Garb set. This basically functions on using Sweeping Wind paired up with Tempest Rush. So basically what you do is you set up a sweeping wind, and that will allow you to pass through enemies. And when you pass through the enemies, you actually leave a decoy thanks to the armor set, and Tempest Rush, which gets a buff to its attack stat. So pretty much you're going to be using pretty much everything that you see here on the screen. Ventral Wind helps you buff Tempest Rush. Wulong Kim helps you buff Sweeping Wind. You need Captain Crimson's in the belt and the feet, because the more cooldown reduction you have, the more damage you are able to deal, and the more defense that you have. So it's always a good thing to run it, especially in this particular set. Another thing that you're going to need is Obsidian Ring of Zodiac for cooldown, Convention of Elements. That's really that bracer. You don't necessarily need that one, but it is kind of advised that you can run it. And that's really pretty much all there is to it. So you're going to be using Crippling Ray. This is just for those moments when you need to build up meter. Tempest Rush, Epiphany, which you're going to be relying heavily on. Sweeping Wind, Inner Sweep. That helps you with 3 stacks. You get back a bit of your meter, but it doesn't happen too often in this particular set. So you're also going to be wanting to use the Beacon of Yar, Harmony, as one of the abilities. Relentless Assault, which helps greatly. And Seize the Initiative. In the cube, you want Balance, Mantle of Channeling, and the Ring of Heroic Ranger, and this is where my Paragon looks like with the build currently. If that was too fast for you, you will be able to get a link directly to the armor set build in the description, so make sure to click that. It's from Icy Veins, very good resource for Diablo 3. Can't recommend them enough to use, guys. So we are going to be doing a Greater Rift 60. This particular armor can get a bit squishy. The race in general, this class, it is a very, very squishy race, so keep that in mind. You gotta be a bit more cautious. What you're gonna do is automatically, right out of the gate, you want to set up a Sweeping Wind. Then you use Tempest to pull enemies towards you. And then when your meter gets down to a certain point, you want to click Epiphany. Epiphany will help you build back your meter and will allow you to do even more damage. When you get to this point, pretty much what you're doing is you are going to constantly be keeping an eye on the cooldown for Epiphany, and you want to, in an ideal setup, in an ideal run, you want to have your Epiphany up as much as possible. You want to keep going into Epiphany each time that it runs out. So it's kind of, that's why Captain Crimson is really good for this set, and the other things that help kind of augment that. Because with the cooldown reduction that you get, you're able to pretty much constantly get into an endless cycle of Epiphany, usually. There are times, though, when you get higher up in the Greater Rift where that becomes a bit more problematic. But this set, you need to keep your Sweeping Wind active. And that's pretty hard to do because Sweeping Wind, it takes a lot of your meter up. The next thing you need to do is constantly have Epiphany set up. When you don't have Epiphany set up and you're running low on Sweeping Wind, or you get killed like there, which now you're going to see a perfect example of that, I have to back away to let my cooldown period, and then I have to worry about Spirit, because then I've used up a lot of Spirit. So you have to keep that in mind. The one thing I don't like about the Monk is they're really squishy as the Necromancer. You could invest more into your Vitality, but this is considered the S-tier speed farm build for the Monk. So ideally, most of your speed is going to come from the amount of power you invest into the set, as opposed to like Vitality and armor. So really, you could add more, but then you're going to slow down, which is not the point of this armor. The point of this armor is to go fast, clear through Greater Rifts very, very fast, very, very effectively for the most part, and allow you to augment things at a higher rate. So, like I said, always make sure you have a Sweeping Wind up. You can get 3 stacks of it, but it costs a lot of your meter. This works in your benefit. Then pop a Epiphany. Always try to keep Epiphany up. I can't stress this enough. When you run into Elite Pack, that's when you're going to be using Blinding Flash. Why? Because when you use Blinding Flash, it's going to not only blind the enemies but stun them, but on top of that, thanks to the fact that you're using Bane of the Trap as one of your rings, you're doing a large amount of damage to the enemies. And particularly, you can just explode elite packs and even the Rift Guardians with general ease. Case in point here, Blinding Flash, and then I just explode the enemies with one Tempest Rush, and then the fact that the Sweeping Wind decoy that it spawns, it actually does a lot of damage. So case in point, see, this is why you do things the way that I'm showing you. And that's how you pretty much effectively will build or actually work with this armor. This is not the Season 22 starter build, I should mention, for the Monk. That is the Patterns of Justice set. I do not have a full armor set of that ready yet, which is why I haven't covered it on the channel. I hope to be doing that sometime within the month of December, probably by the second week of December, hopefully going into the third week. I will try to cover it as best as I can to my knowledge. We got a very long season, so hang in tight with me there, guys. You know, we're coming up in the holiday season. Case in point, most of you probably who are familiar with the videos and watch every day, or not every day, but every week, which I thank you guys for tremendously, are aware that I was not making videos on Thursday or Friday last week because it was Thanksgiving and then Black Friday and, you know, trying to get that PS5, you know. It's quite challenging. You can get a lot of Xbox Series X, but trying to get a PS5 right now has been proving quite difficult. And, you know, anybody who was dealing with Best Buy last week, as most of you guys probably know, kind of was really bugging. I don't think anybody really got their PS5. So, we'll see. I'm hoping to bring some PS5 content to the channel soon. It's very soon. Hopefully before December is over. It's, just gotta hope deity shines some grace on me, perhaps. Alright, so getting I gotta back away here and hold up because that flame will just pretty much one-shot me. And if it one-shots me right now, I'll kind of mess up my setup. My Epiphany went off again. I have my Sweeping Wind active. Then I just Tempest Rush, because Tempest Rush acts like a vacuum, so it starts sucking things in. And then when anything gets hit with Sweeping Wind, the decoy get cast. There is a bit of a problem with this particular set that Blizzard has sort of addressed and has sort of not. Sometimes when you pass through somebody with Sweeping Wind, like an enemy or a mob, the decoy doesn't get cast like it's supposed to. It's this weird error. Sometimes you gotta go in diagonal movements and everything. They've said they fixed it. I've noticed they've made it a little bit better so it actually casts the way it's supposed to, but not often does it still happen that way. Sometimes you get some weird glitchy things for it. So keep that in mind, that the set is a little still kind of bugged. Alright, so that was a pretty fast clear time. I'm just augmenting Bane of the Powerful here so I can then just augment it into the armor. Ideally, you want it to get to like level 70 and then augment it into a ancient legendary armor slot that you have and get more power. 4-minute clear time, so that's pretty optimal for the Tempest Rush Monk thing. Again, here's the same setup. Set up a Sweeping Wind, then do a couple of Tempests. Now my mirror's halfway down, so I will pop the Epiphany. The Epiphany will regen some of my Spirit Meter and allow me to do a massive amount of damage. So then I just kind of Tempest Rush through things and through enemies. Now, something I think that is very important to note is notice that I'm not holding in Tempest Rush all the time as I'm making my way through. As I approach an enemy, I'm lightly clicking into not Sweeping Wind, but Tempest Rush so that I can pull the enemy in. Then whenever I'm not near a mob and I can't do damage to a mob, I don't continue to hold Tempest Rush because we have to micromanage the amount of spirit that we use with the set. Because this particular armor set is very powerful and can speed through things, but its biggest downside is you burn, case in point there, if you look on the left-hand screen, you burn through a lot of spirit, which is why Crippling Wave comes in handy, because when you get yourself into a rough spot, but Epiphany is active, but you don't have a lot of spirit, what you want to do is find the weakest potential mobs density around you. Somewhere where you know there's a lot of weak mobs, and just pound a couple of Crippling Waves into those mobs. You'll get back about half to 75% of your meter doing that tactic, and then you can get back to doing the same thing. Set up a Sweeping Wind, then start Tempest Rushing into things, pulling them in, and then you wait for the Epiphany cooldown. The Epiphany cooldown windows should be so fast that you're really rarely going to be in a position where you don't have Epiphany active in this armor. Keep in mind, if you're doing this on Season 22 as a seasonal character, You're not going to have as much cooldown reduction in the beginning because keep in mind that's something that you have to invest into Paragon. So, maybe things you should look at when you're in your Season 22 journey, if you decide that this is the route you're going to go with the Monk and you ditched your Patterns of Justice set, definitely make sure you invest some Paragon into cooldown reduction once you have done at least 50 Dexterity and 50 in all those Earthing. Cooldown reduction, AoE is kind of important on this particular armor set. As I always say with every armor set that you see on the channel, on your helm you want high crit rate damage, or at least high hit crit rate ratio. So you want 6.0 hit crit rate ratio in the helm. In the gloves, if you can get crit hit ratio 6% and also a high crit hit damage roll, usually it's about 50, that is probably your most optimal way to go with it. If you can also, on top of those two stats, get an attack plus booster, either 6 or 7, that is like the perfect thing as long as it's an ancient legendary piece. If it's not, then it's like, well, it's great to use, but then at some point you have to swap it for ancient legendary. Ideally, that's what you want to strive for. Your weapons, definitely try to go for ancient legendary as well. Keep in mind, Captain Crimson is something that you are not going to be able to forge easily. That's something that you're going to have to do multiple bounties of, I believe, to get the items, and you'll probably have to do all the worlds over several times. If you're in a seasonal journey, chances are you're going to be doing a lot of bounties in general anyway throughout your whole journey through Season 22. So that really shouldn't be a problem because when you're doing the bounties, you're also probably going to clear off a lot of other seasonal journeys. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with a Diablo season, basically what it is you pick a character class and you build them up from scratch and you play out the whole season. There's 12 chapters with journeys. Each chapter has a set of objectives. You clear those objectives. At the end of the chapter, when you've completed all the objectives for that chapter, you get a reward. For the first chapter, it's usually only like a portrait. When you start getting into Chapter 2, 3, and 4, each time you complete one of those chapters, you will get a Hadred's Gift. Hadred's Gift will give you 2 pieces of your starter set armor. That is the Patterns of Justice set for the Monk. So once you complete Chapter 2, all the objectives, they'll give you 2 pieces of it. Then when you complete Chapter 3, the reward is another 2 pieces. When you get to Chapter 4 and you complete that, another 2 pieces. You are always guaranteed a complete set of your starter set for seasonal journeys. Hadred's Gift always guarantees you. They're not guaranteed to be ancient legendary pieces. They could be good pieces. They could be bad pieces. But you'll get the full set that way. So basically what you'll probably want to do at that point is, if you haven't already encountered Sun Wuku set, like, start grinding for that while you're using the other set, because Patterns of Justice isn't a bad set, but this will give you a bit more mileage and a bit more bang for your buck, and it'll be able to give you high leaderboard placement, which is, speaking of very things that are high, I went higher up in the Greater Rift. This is a Greater Rift 70, so the mobs do a lot more damage. If I didn't have Sweeping when active, case in point there, it made me run into a bit of a squash potential there. Well, thanks. The Monk is very, very squishy like the Necromancer, so all those projectiles really do not work in my benefit. I don't actually like to see that particular layout of enemies on this particular dungeon because there's a lot of ways I can die here, just so many different elements. And that's where Monk has a little bit of problems with all those random stray projectiles and AoE effects that are in this particular dungeon. But yeah, once you pretty much got your Patterns of Justice, start farming for this set. Trust me, I definitely know what I'm talking about in regards. I've played at least 10 seasons of Diablo so far. I know the ins and outs. I've been there. I've done some really horrible mistakes on armors, not knowing any better. I wish somebody was telling me the stuff I'm telling you now. But yeah, definitely try to go for Sun Wuku. This is going to take you way further, and it's going to give you a higher leaderboard placement. Really, when it comes to the season, it's all about getting high positioning on the leaderboards if you're playing online and you're doing a seasonal journey, and it's good bragging rights. Pretty much Tempest Rush Monk is one of the top 5 builds always in Diablo because of its speed. It only loses out to Legacy of Dreams, Poison Scythe Necromancer, Gears of Dreadland, Hungering Arrow, Demon Hunter, Whirlwind Barbarian, which is always like the end-all, the be-all. And then we have, usually it's either a Typhoon Hydra variant or some type of Hydra variant for the Wizard or Chantodomvir. Those things always tend to be the very high things. There's also, you could argue, Mundanugu. Mundanugu is very good at speeding through things and doing a lot of damage. It loses a bit more favor in higher greater rifts because if you're not fully augmented, you can't do certain things. Here, oops, case point here. This armor is kind of one of those things also where it's like, I'd say in the top 5, maybe either 5 or 4 for the armor because of the squishiness. You know, that's something you always got to keep an eye on, but as you can see, it clears through things so fast when you can try to maintain things. It's always the problem with this particular armor is that trying to find a balance between micromanaging the amount of spirit you use, and case in point here, see, sometimes you want to get aggressive and you can't because of the mobs shooting so many projectiles that you have to back away and just, you know, rebuild your spirit that way. Sometimes there is victory in being a bit of a coward when it comes to the monk in Diablo 3. It's kind of funny to say that, but it really applies for that particular class. So, as always, it's still the same strategy here. Set up some stacks of Sweeping Wind, try to get 3 of them, then pop an Epiphany, and everything else you're just Tempest rushing through. Hopefully your decoys get active and do a lot of damage, and then hopefully as you're doing more damage to the enemy, your cooldown reduction is going significantly well so that you are able to use your Epiphany again. Now, how will you do that? You do that with Goaka Swiftness. So if you haven't figured out I was using a Goaka Swiftness in this particular armor set, well, now you know. Goaka Swiftness, Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken. You can run Bane of the Powerful until you get to really, like, high greater rifts. Once you get to greater rift 70, 75, especially at 80, that Bane of the Powerful really is not going to do much for you, so you might as well augment it. Stick with Stricken if you're in higher greater rift. If you're in lower greater rifts, Bane of the Powerful will pretty much do everything you need to. Pretty much it'll take you for the first 60, 65-ish greater rifts with ease. Then after that, pretty much Stricken. Realistically, if you could put both on while you're waiting to augment other gems that you need, they work pretty well in tangent together. Stricken's really for when you get higher up in the greater rifts and you run into a Rift Guardian. That does not go down in one hit. Usually with the set, you will take most things down in one hit, even the Rift Guardians. It's very seldom you won't unless you were micromanaging and you weren't in your Epiphany state, or you didn't set up your Sweeping Wind right, and you don't have intervals, or you've ran out of Spirit. Running out of Spirit when you get to the Rift Guardian is like the end-all for this particular build, because you will pretty much be in for a not-so-fun time, and will kind of want to punch the wall perhaps there, so definitely something you all need to keep an eye on. All right. I'm actually feeling really good about this particular run for this was super fast. Unfortunately, I took that death in the beginning, so I will not get the augment bonus, which is a little unfortunate. I used Blinding Flash there, by the way. That way I could do extra damage and explode that elite pack. So keep in mind, you also gotta... I used a Blinding Flash there, too, as well. You probably didn't get to see it because of how fast it was. It was a Blinding Flash into a Tempest Rush in Epiphany state. Automatically going to one-shot that Rift Guardian. So keep in mind, when you get to Rift Guardian, Blinding Flash, and hopefully you have all your buffs already active, and that's how you kind of take care of a Rift Guardian in one shot. Alright, that was really super fast, and pretty much went without any hitches, so I think I actually have time to do one more. I think we'll do a Greater Rift, maybe a 75 here, guys, because we could push a 75 and maybe do it even fast. That's Greater Rift 70. Alright, so this is going to be a Greater Rift 75. Same strategy, set up a Sweeping Wind, cast my Epiphany faster because these mobs do a lot more damage, and then I'm pretty much going to Tempest Rush to pull things in like a vacuum, do damage. They'll pretty much all die once they get pulled in. Hopefully, if not, the decoy that's being set from Tempest, or not Tempest, but from Sweeping Wind will do the rest. And I'm always going to try to keep an eye on my meter on the left-hand side. So when I see Epiphany's active, where I can use it again, I always go click it in, and that's pretty much how you're going to deal with this. When you get to high greater rifts like this, the concentration of mobs gets incredibly intense. And I know for some of the less experienced players, it's very hard to keep an eye on the left hand of the screen when you got all those mobs going on. It's micromanaging, hard, you got to multitask. But you really, with this set, I cannot stress it enough. Other sets are a bit more forgiving, where if you forget to like do that cooldown, you'll be okay. But with the Monk, if you don't have that Epiphany and you're in a greater rift 75 and 80 or higher, chances are you are going to get killed. So you really have to keep an eye on that meter on the left-hand side. It's in your benefit. I cannot stress this enough because the enemies are coming so fast at you that you need to be able to deal the most amount of damage, and you have to be able to get the cooldown active. And it gets to the point where, case in point here, there's so many mobs coming at me. One mistake that you do, one thing that you forget to actually click something after it's cooled down will pretty much cost you, and you won't get a 4-piece bonus. Or the worst thing that will happen is you're going to lose all your spirit. You'll be out of spirit. You'll be out of epiphany, and you'll have no way to build that meter because you can't use crippling wave against giant, large, bulky mobs. Remember, as you go up in greater rifts, the HP of the mobs are going to be higher, the more damage they could deal. So running up to something and just punching it to hopefully build your meter is not going to work when you don't have a really good defensive strategy, or you can take a hit well, which is case in point, monks. They can dish a lot of damage, but they can't take a hit, which is kind of not really true with real-life monks in Tibetan culture and everything, because I'm pretty sure if you walk up to a monk and punch them, they probably will kick your behind. Alright, speaking of kicking behinds, we're actually clearing through this greater rift at a very fast pace here, guys. This particular dungeon is the most ideal setup for Tempest Rush Monk right now. It's an open area. You're not stuck in anything. The mobs are constantly coming at you, and they're coming at you at a rate where it gives you enough time to be able to actually cool down and refresh your epiphany. I used Binding Flash there. It was so fast you probably didn't notice it, but Binding Flash. Whenever you see elite packs when you're in like career of 75 and up, Blinding Flash first and then try to kill them. Alright, my Sweeping Wind was down there. That's why I didn't take it out in one hit. I set some stacks back up with that. That way I could just clear through them. Remember, also, it's like Sweeping Wind. You gotta maintain that Sweeping Wind. You gotta maintain the Epiphany. A lot of different things are going on in this armor to be able to work it effectively going. Alright, I gotta be careful. Gotta back off a little bit there, because as much as the Massacre bonus was fun, losing that potential chance to get a perfect greater of 75 run. Alright, Rift Guardian. Alright, Sweeping Wind's active, Epiphany's active. I'm Blinding Flash, ran into it, killed it in one hit. And look at all that loot we got. Alright, that might have been free. That was either under 4-minute clear time or even sub-free clear time, because that was fast, that was efficient, and it's rare that you get on video, but that was exactly the perfect example of what this armor can do, how you're supposed to run it, and how crucial it is not to make a mistake with it. So we're going to return to town, see what time we have on the clock here.
Well done, champion.
What is it? 3 minutes and 36 seconds on a Greater Rift 75, which is Torment 16 difficulty, guys. So if that doesn't show you an S-tier monk build, I don't know what to tell you, because that's as fast and as S-tier as you're going to get. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe, and I will see you Wednesday for the next Diablo 3 video. Till next time.